on, fools? Welcome to episode 18 of Politics on the Rocks. I'm your host, Nick, and we have Chris.
Hey there, ho there.
Bookie.
Good day.
And Cameron.
Hey.
That was Hurtin' on the Bottle by Margo Price. It's a pretty fun little song for us today. Today we're going to be talking about...
Executive orders.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Fun
guess-
topic, kids.
Yeah. Well, I feel like it's a pretty...
That's important.
Yeah, it's like a super relevant topic, too, I feel like, over the past year and a half, 2 years, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's irrelevant since the United States has been a country, but
Yeah, right.
I think for me it's
Well, yeah.
something I haven't even thought of until recently.
Well, I let me rephrase that. It's more relevant today because,
Correct.
presidents didn't used to throw these things around like they do today, so...
Unless you're what? Roosevelt, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
He threw that big dick around with those executive orders.
Jesus.
Coming in hot on this
Yeah.
afternoon episode.
Carry a bit. What was that? Walk softly and carry a big dick.
Yeah, that was Teddy Roosevelt.
That's what I thought it was.
Oh, what's our special
Well,
guest?
he was the
Cam?
first one, so that's why I thought you guys. Anyways,
Who's our
we'll
special
get into
guest?
that.
Oh, special guest is on the other side of the table, but it's Long Branch
Yeah.
by Wild Turkey. It's kind of like their, I don't know, a little bit more
Like
special small batch release.
Mid-range kind of?
Yeah, mid-range. Yeah, it's good. I thought it was pretty good.
I haven't had it yet. I'm still not even
Oh.
done with my coffee here.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got coffee. We're doing a little
Coffee, beer,
beer,
cigars.
whiskey, cigar episode. We have like 14 different beverages around the table.
Yeah, our bodies are going to be
So this
out of sorts.
this mixer is really playing with destiny right now with all these liquids.
Yeah.
Oh, my God, yeah. Just keep it away. Keep all the drinks away from me as I sip my coffee over this mixing board.
Oh man.
Good stuff.
So yeah, I think we kind of just say we're gonna have a fun episode about just kind of delving into the topic of executive orders and kind of see where it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Jump in, I guess, right?
yeah, I'd agree.
Jump in.
I don't know. I guess a good place to start was just someone explain what an executive order is. If anybody wants to explain, or
Do you want to?
I mean,
I can pull up, like, the proper definition.
sure, do that.
All right.
But based on what I saw, executive order is just what it sounds. It's an order brought down from the executive branch, from the president himself or herself, soon to be probably, and it's not a law, but it has the weight of a law.
Right.
And once it's put into effect, it can be either brought down through the courts, or Congress itself can do one of two things. It can pass a law itself to nullify the executive order, which, if you know how a law is passed, that typically won't work because the president can just veto that law. But they can actually, without the president's approval, take away funding for the executive order, which is the typical thing they'll do.
Yeah. What is an executive? An executive order is a signed, written, and published directive from the President of the United States that manages operations of the federal government. They are numbered consecutively, so executive orders may be referenced by their assigned number or their topic. Other presidential documents are sometimes similar to executive orders in their format, formality, and issue, but have different purposes. Proclamations, which are also signed and numbered consecutively, communicate information on holidays, commemorations, federal observance, and trade. Administrative orders, example, memos, notices, letters, messages, are not numbered but are still signed and are used to manage administrative matters of the federal government. All three types of presidential documents, executive orders, proclamations, and certain administrative orders, are published in the Federal Register, the daily journal of the federal government that is published to inform the public about federal regulations and actions. They are also cataloged by the National Archives as official documents produced by the federal government. Both executive orders and proclamations have the force of law, much like regulations issued by a federal agency. So are they codified under Title III of the Code of Federal Regulations, which is the formal collection of all the rules and regulations issued by the executive branch and other federal agencies. Executive orders are not legislation. They require no approval from Congress, and Congress cannot simply overturn them. Congress may pass legislation that might make it difficult or even impossible to carry out the order, such as removing funding. Only a sitting U.S. president may overturn an existing executive order by issuing another executive order to that effect. So, yeah, there's like a bunch more shit I
Yeah,
could read through
that's
here. It's
fine.
like the American Bar Association.
I don't know about you guys, but trying to find information besides like your definitions and like your few standout executive orders that have been done in history, it's pretty hard unless you want to dig through the thousands of executive orders and what happened to them. I don't know. It's really hard. I wanted to find out how many executive orders are still on the books, right? Are still active. And
I ran into the same problem.
there was
There's
literally no public forum that lists
which ones are still active
because,
and which ones aren't.
like Nick just said in the definition, as, most recently, like when Obama left presidency and Trump came, a lot of his executive orders to begin with were reversing what what Obama did. So it's like,
and likewise when Biden took seat.
Exactly. He did the same thing with Trump.
so it's really hard to figure out like what is even like. Is it just like a storage closet full of papers, like that just no one knows what's going on?
Yeah,
Yeah.
The thing too about that and what you and Nick just said is that each president comes in and undoes the other president's executive orders. That's like the kind of what's been happening the past couple.
Like a handful of them, yeah.
Yeah. So, like, I know it doesn't have it has the same. It doesn't have the same power as a law, but the court has to sort of deal with whether or not it's too overreaching or whatever. But like, if it was there through the entire 4 years or however long that like how long does that actually really take place? Like the undoing of one.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like, 'cause it seems like they would just be there indefinitely unless another president undoes them.
Yeah, there's probably like a ton of them that we don't even like think about.
You know,
They're
it's interesting.
technically
I'm
on
on
the
the federalregister.com or federalregister.gov, and it's got the last 1, 2, 3, 4, the last 5 administrations, and I feel like I remember during Donald Trump's era, all the Democrats saying how you can't govern by executive order or whatever, criticizing him for being like comparing
Exactly.
him to a dictator, right? Out of the last 5 administrations, excluding obviously Biden because he hasn't even been in a year, he actually had the least number of executive orders. Obama, George W. Bush, and Bill Clinton had like a significant amount more. Donald Trump had 219, Obama had 276, George W. Bush had 291, Bill Clinton had 254.
Yeah.
So it's
Well,
I think that's
factor
just
in-
interesting to see.
I guess you got to factor in the fact that they were all 3 of the previous ones were in their 8 years, whereas he was in their 4.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's the
oh
thing,
yeah,
yeah.
That's a
okay.
good point.
Yeah. So that
So
yeah.
technically, may have written more.
I mean,
Per,
probably
per year, probably an average more.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, it still doesn't change the fact that. So I mean, get this, Joe Biden. So the rate, like we just said, the rate was higher for Donald Trump, but so Donald Trump's rate per year would be 55 executive orders per year, and so far Biden is at a rate of 95 per year.
95.
Yeah, he's
Jeez.
he's done 61 of them so far, and it's only been like 0.6 years.
Oh yeah.
So depending what happens next couple months, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. We can kind of go into the like notable executive orders that have been done through history
Yeah.
that people now look back and say that's a bad thing we did, but
Yep.
still a good point to bring up. The most famous is during World War II, obviously.
Yeah.
The
The internment of the
internment
Japanese.
camps. Yeah,
Yeah.
it is the Japanese because I think that was by far the most population in there, but I think they also took in some Italians and Germans. But obviously, it was a very small population compared to the Japanese.
Right.
Right.
But
Before we go into that, there's another type of not executive order, but something similar to that. But it's a what am I trying to say here? What's the other one?
Federal
Mandate?
No, Mandarin.
Memorandum.
Yeah. So sorry. Thanks for clarifying how to say it. That's another like type of similar thing. And then when you like research it, it's almost like it's an executive order with a different name. Yeah. So I don't know. You have to look that up, Nick. But
Yeah, I'll look it up right now.
I came across it when I was looking it up because they actually separate them from executive orders, but they're almost the same exact thing.
really,
It's just sort of a name change. So, but look that up, man. Presidential ones.
Would that be like an executive, or is it a presidential memorandum?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, presidential memorandum. Here you go. Ballotpedia. A presidential memorandum is an official document issued by the president in order to manage the federal government. Presidential memorandum achieve similar goals as executive orders, but are not required to be published in the Federal Register or include a justification of presidential authority. According to the Congressional Research Service, presidential memoranda have been used historically to carry out routine executive decisions and determinations or to direct agencies to perform duties consistent with the law or implement laws that are presidential priorities. This historical usage contrasts with that of executive orders, which tend to be used in cases that may benefit from public awareness or be subject to heightened scrutiny. Presidential memoranda carry the weight of law, but they are not numbered or required by law to be published by the Office of the Federal Register. Under an executive order issued by President John F. Kennedy, the president must cite the constitutional or legal authority that justifies the executive order's issuance. This justification is not required for presidential memorandas. So it almost sounds like those are even less restrictive in implementing for a president. Because you don't have to, register it in the Federal Register. You don't have to basically justify its legality, so it's whatever they decide.
I'm not going to lie, I had a hard time listening real fast. Is the scope of what you can do with them smaller, though?
It didn't really say too much.
It kind of sounds like it's the same thing, but because it doesn't have such a high level, I guess the executive orders doesn't have much of a high level of scrutiny, but it has a higher level of scrutiny compared to the memoranda because they actually have to prove why they have the authority to do what they're doing. Or at least they have to make a point as to why they have the authority.
Yeah, so I'm assuming that...
Whereas a memoranda is it would face a lot more backlash probably.
Okay.
Right, that's what I was just going to say. It sounds like they use these for less...
controversial or...
Yeah.
For things that it's unquestioned that the president has
like giving
power
holidays
to
to federal workers probably or something like that.
Yeah.
Well, here, let's look up some examples just to see.
And while you looked that up, I was really interested once we started looking into the executive orders because, currently, or why we're making this a topic now for myself, is we start seeing this, now that I'm more politically active, being used to, obviously, presidents push forward what they want instead of going through Congress. Right. And it would seem Congress is more than willing, okay with this, because it's not their issue, whatever happens then. They can take the, we didn't pass that. It's not a law, it's an executive order. It was the president, it wasn't us. So, and, any political pundit can and has said this over time that, Congress is more of just a sitting council now. It doesn't do anything and just passes on the power to the president. But I was interested to see over X amount of years how many executive orders were passed versus how many laws. And it was pretty interesting because, let me find this real fast. Oh my goodness. So it seemed like since 1789, there have been 30,000 laws or statutes passed through Congress. And then executive orders, which I think we talked about just briefly, they weren't recorded up until 1906. That's when the records, the numbering them started. So you can find, estimations, what Washington and all of them prior to 1906 may have passed, but it's not for sure. But since 1906, we have executive orders have been 15,800.
Holy shit.
Yeah. So that's, 120 years less?
Mm-hmm.
And they've almost dealt 50...
half
that. And then some sources say they believe that there may be 50,000 unnumbered executive orders.
Golly.
Jeez.
So we pretty much are governed by executive orders at this point.
Yeah. Now, obviously, if someone's, not pro-executive, but is looking at the side, they can say, well, laws of executive orders may be things that just pertain to federal government, like holidays, how they do business within certain federal agencies, which is probably true.
Yeah.
But as we see now and throughout history, it does have a point to come to actually affecting our lives.
Oh,
Yeah.
for sure.
Which is a big thing we're trying to bring up.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the most recent one that's gained a lot of attention is the vaccine mandates, and, those types of things that all came about through executive order. And then, under Donald Trump, we saw the bump stock bans and a couple other things I can't really remember.
Which is weird because Biden didn't reverse the bump stock ban.
Yeah,
Executive order.
Well, didn't it go to the Supreme Court and it was ruled that it was unconstitutional?
The bump stock one?
Yeah, because it did get overturned.
Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
that's
Yeah.
right. It was like a few months ago.
Yeah, but now they're trying to do. They're going after like binary triggers, so it's like triggers where like you pull the trigger, it shoots, and you let go and it shoots.
Oh.
So they're going after those right now.
Mm-hmm.
What's that company called?
Not Franklin.
It's FS trigger. Let me see. I guess it's not really.
Yeah, I don't know. This, they're pretty interesting though, but I hear they break a lot.
Yeah.
And then another thing that was, again, as I stated in the beginning of this discussion, very hard to find a, what's the word? A database that actually brings in information about these executive orders and certain things that have happened with them. So it's really hard to find out, again, how many are in the books, how many have been reversed, so are still active. But I was able to find some information about executive orders that have gone through the courts, and it stated that between 1945 and 1998, all executive orders that went to court, so not 100% of the executive orders, but the ones that went to court themselves, 83% were ruled in favor of the president.
Jeez.
So,
That's
There's
a
not
lot.
much hope.
Yeah.
yeah, which is depressing.
That's
Yeah,
super
for sure.
depressing.
Yeah, it seems like so looking through the list of which presidents have done the most executive orders and things like that. It seems like during times of war, it seems to be really common that the executive orders get used pretty heavily.
Yeah, I
And
noticed that trend.
Also in times of economic depression. It seems like people just kind of look over these things. They're like,
crisis
he's doing
is-
something, Yeah, during any sort of crises, they're
Like a pandemic.
yeah, exactly. Things like that.
Because God forbid we do nothing,
Yeah,
But you probably have the
do
numbers
something.
about Roosevelt and all them that passed
Yeah,
a shit
like-
ton.
So in
Yeah.
the early years, I mean, it was very rare for a president to have a rate higher than one executive order per year. It was really rare until
It was almost viewed as like despicable, right? Like it was like
Yeah.
it was
Kinda
something
like
to
a
kind of be
taboo.
ashamed of,
Yeah.
like
Right.
as a president.
Yeah, I think we only passed, a president to hit 10 or more executive orders in the last 70 years? Maybe 100?
Yeah, well, so I think Abraham Lincoln was the first one he did 12 per year.
Okay, so that was a little
And
more
then
than...
after that, it just kind of started to ramp up. And Ulysses Grant issued 217 of them during Reconstruction. And then after that, it was kind of hovered around 100 or so executive orders from each president. And then Teddy Roosevelt issued over 1,000. So that's where it really just went out of control. I've always said Teddy Roosevelt's major flaw was that he didn't account for the fact that he wouldn't be president forever.
Yeah.
He created all these precedents that were not so bad when Teddy Roosevelt was doing them, but
Right.
once you get other people in there, it's like we talk about all the time. You set that precedent, and it just
It's all good and fun when your guy's in there, but
That's it.
on the reverse of that,
Yeah, and then I mean after that it was Woodrow Wilson and then Franklin Roosevelt was the other one. So he had almost 4,000 during his terms, which he served 12 years. So I guess it's
He had that
something
extra,
to-
yeah.
something to
third
factor
term.
in.
But
there.
still,
Yeah.
I mean, almost 4,000. Not to sound like I don't know history. That was he was during World War II, right?
right?
Okay.
Yeah, yep.
Which again goes back to during a crisis, it seems,
Yeah, it's just out of control.
which
whenever.
is a reason, but not a good one, I think.
Yeah, it's like the president just becomes a king during crisis.
Yeah.
What book you just said about 83% passing?
Well, based on, and so it's 83% that went to court, and there
Okay.
wasn't a number of how many went to court. So it's 83% of a certain number. I don't know that number, unfortunately.
Right, but that doesn't give me much hope for this recent one with Biden.
Yeah,
Whether or
I
not
know.
they rule that constitutional or not. I would assume that first hearing about it, I'm assuming that there's no way that thing passes, right?
Yeah.
And also with an executive order, it opens up a bunch of like lawsuits. It opens it up for that. Where whether
Would you say that it doesn't pass the sniff test?
The Biden sniff test.
No, it just doesn't give me a lot of hope. But I mean, I guess since it's an executive order and not a law, there will be a lot of like other lawsuits that will come into play. Where if it's there. Oh my god, what am I trying to say? As if it's already a law, it's hard. You can't really. There's no. You know what I'm saying? It's already been passed.
Yeah, I think laws can still be overturned, but the whole point, as we all probably know, but just stating it, but a law is, I mean, it takes a long time, which is on purpose.
Yeah.
Because it goes through so much scrutiny.
Yeah,
it goes through so much time. Yeah. And obviously now laws of fucking books thick, filled with shit, giving money to Israel and...
Yeah.
And it seems like there's not a whole lot of effort from, like all these partisan things that happen. There's not a whole lot of effort to even put it through Congress, because they know it's just going to get, stalled, or it's going to get like something's going to happen and it's not going to go through, and it's a lot harder to get it through. Whereas with an executive order, they just got to, get their puppet in there, and then he can do whatever he wants.
Yep.
I know that they're planning on suing over that mask mandate, so...
Well, that's what I'm saying. I think as an executive order, it opens up the opportunity for a lot of people.
Well,
to
yeah,
take
that's
to
it,
court.
because it never goes through,
Right.
what legislation does. It
Yeah, it doesn't go through the right-
just what Boogie was saying.
Right.
So, yes, you have to, justify its legality, but it still doesn't go through all the proper channels. So, yeah, I think you're right. It does open you up to, as a president, to,
And then,
being sued, overturned.
with an executive order, it's one of the, like I think we talked about 2 episodes ago now. Even if it's going to be overturned through the courts, it's still within a law, or not a law, but it's still an act for a certain amount of time.
Mm.
Could be a year, could be 3 years, whatever it may be. Usually it's pretty fast, these things, but still. And then also, like we discussed, with the Biden's vaccine mandate, we think it's probably not going to hold up to snuff or pass a sniff test once it gets to the Supreme Court.
Yeah, I don't
but how
think
many
so.
businesses have probably took this as a law
Yeah.
and are going to enact
It's
it because of what he
already
said?
It's already
Yeah.
had
Which-
repercussions.
Correct.
Well, from what I
Yeah.
remember in that, when he, did his little press release for that, didn't he say effective immediately? So...
Yeah, whatever that means.
Well, yeah, I mean...
on Monday or whatever.
in a sense, it until it's sued and overturned or deemed unconstitutional, it is law, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, which again, you get into the argument of like, what is law? Like, if my
Well, yeah,
if my
yeah,
local
of course.
police don't enforce it, is it really a law?
Right, right.
Until then, so it's again one of the good things and confusing things about the system we have is the trickle down can sometimes be a little slower, which is good.
Yeah. Yeah. If you're in, New York City, you're shit out of luck. It's in effect. It's been in effect. But if you're in our area,
Yeah.
it's not really law yet, or at least it doesn't feel like it.
Mm-hmm.
And now governors can also exercise the same sort of... It's not a... Is it? Yeah, I guess it's
an
still
executive order.
order, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little different. I can't correctly remember what the difference is, but for like 90% of it, it's the same thing where they pass something without going through legislator.
Yeah.
It holds the weight of a law, has
Yeah.
more scrutiny because it does that.
I know that when DeSantis passed that mask executive order, banning schools from mandating masks or whatever, it did get like put on pause, right? Like because a judge ruled against it, then they put it on pause. It wasn't effective anymore.
Yeah, then they appealed it and they won the appeal.
Yeah.
So now
yeah.
it's and
So, but it seems like with a federal executive order, that's not the case. Like, it doesn't get like put on pause.
Right.
well, I think that I could be wrong, but I think the difference might be is the pace that a local state executive order can go through to go through the courts is probably faster than federal. I might be wrong about that, but it would just seem like since it's more centralized,
Yeah, I think you're right about that.
but who knows? But you're right.
Yeah.
It does seem like state executive orders go through faster through the courts and can get paused
challenged
easier.
quicker, and
For whatever reason, who knows? But I don't know. Yeah, I looked up a couple other things, and it would seem because again we stated that Congress has some power when it comes to executive orders. and only about 4% of all executive orders, and I could be wrong about that. It might be like 4% of executive orders that Congress has looked at, but from what I remember, it was 4% of the executive orders is all that Congress has modified.
Mhm.
And typically it's to embolden the executive order. So either they give it more funding, they change the funding, or they add more to it, like they like to do.
Right, it's very rarely against the...
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's not reassuring.
Yeah, it's not. And I don't know. We haven't really gotten it too much, which because we probably all know each other's opinions on it. But I would say we're all against the executive orders
Yeah.
Yeah.
when it comes to overall, like,
Yeah.
yeah. I don't know. It might be interesting for people listening to know why, if they don't.
Well, it's just, I mean, it's, in my eyes, I don't see it any different as, like, you know, a dictatorship. Like, obviously there's, like, you know, some checks in place, like, you know, the RNC or the DNC can sue the White House over it, and, you know, the Supreme Court can overturn it, things like that. But, I mean, how, like, I feel like, like, fundamentally that is the definition of, like, what a dictator is, right? It's somebody who can rule without any sort of...
Yeah, I mean, people will tell you that we live in a republic, but the whole premise of a republic is that you're electing representative officials, which are congressmen.
Yep.
And those people are making the laws. And the way our system was laid out, it concentrated the power in the Congress, because the Congress is
Your
very
state representatives.
Yeah, it's your direct representatives, and it's very decentralized because it's a group of like 500 plus people. Whereas the executive branch is one guy, and the judicial is like, what, 12 federal judges, 12 circuit judges. So it was, I feel like it was very deliberate that the power was centralized in the Congress.
And now it's almost completely reversed.
That it has to go through all this scrutiny to be able to actually become a law. But now the executive branch just puts in whatever they want, and then some judge reaffirms it, and then it's law. Right? So it's like we're not a republic anymore.
Right, it was supposed to be the 500 have the most power, then the 12 judges, and then the one president, and now it's like completely the opposite way.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
Like, I feel like nobody really ever talks
And
about...
the judges are appointed by the president, too. So
Yeah, so it's almost like his little, you know, his little minions.
And I mean, and they do go through they have to be approved by
Confirmation.
Congress.
Yeah,
But
the
still-
Supreme Court judges. But I'm not sure how the circuit judges work, but those are appointed by the executive branch as well.
Probably.
And I'm not too sure how that process works, but it seems a lot less stringent than the Supreme Court judge.
And I know local, like when I say local, I mean statewide. I don't know. I don't think, and we can look it up if we need to. But if the governor DeSantis appoints a circuit judge, it doesn't go through any type of legislator like overview. I think they just get appointed.
Governors?
Yeah, at their,
I'm not... honestly, I'm not sure.
'cause I think I just saw recently DeSantis has appointed a couple new circuit judges. But I could be wrong about that.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. There's a ton of positions that are just appointed by the executive branch, and it just kind of like, you can see how those positions end up reinforcing the executive branch and kind of giving them what they want.
All right, here we... Sorry, finish.
No, go ahead.
The
Gubernatorial?
gubernatorial appointment method of judicial selection is a process by which the governor appoints state judges directly without having to select from a list of names provided by a selection committee. As of June 2021, all states using this method require a legislative or other government body to confirm the appointments. This selection method is the most similar used for state Supreme Court judges to the one used at the federal level for Article III judges, who are appointed by the President and confirmed by the U.S. Senate. As of June 2021, 5 states use this method at the state Supreme Court level, and 2 states use this selection method for at least one type of court below the Supreme Court level. There's some more other methods of judicial selection include partisan and nonpartisan selection, the Michigan-Ohio method, assisted appointment, and legislative elections.
Yeah, my thought was...
Wait, sorry. Just to follow up on this, the gubernatorial appointment that I just read the definition. California, Maine, Massachusetts, and New Jersey are the ones that did that in 2021. Here we go. Florida selection method, assisted appointment, governor controlled. So
I'm guessing they send him a list.
Assisted appointment. Let's see.
Assisted.
The assisted appointment method of judicial selection, sometimes referred to as a merit selection or the Missouri Plan, is a process by which the governor appoints state judges with help from a nominating commission or board. The commission or board submits a list of names to the governor for consideration, with the governor making the final selection for the appointment. So yeah, what you were saying, Bookie, is how Florida does it.
Okay.
Yeah, but I don't know. What I was saying, like, as far as when they wrote the Constitution, do you think they ever had in mind this sort of mass use of, like, executive orders, you know? Like, I mean, a lot of people, a lot of scholars on it don't believe so, and there's like kind of like a very small bit written about the, authority of like the pen to write executive orders, but never to the extent of, and I think what we used to see, well, we never did because we weren't alive then, but how they used to use them is almost like a taboo, very reserved way of using it, and now it's just that's what one was ruled, like you said, by executive order. So I don't know. I don't think it's right at all. I'm not for it. I think it's the wrong way to do things.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. And I think if you guys have been listening to us for a while, we give DeSantis shit a lot because he does some of his bigger, fame is doing things through executive orders.
Nice. Chips.
So it's why we give him shit for it, because one, we don't necessarily agree that's how you should rule through, and two, if it's something that we, when I say we, I mean as a state, believe that should be passed, it's probably better to go through the legislator, because it's going to be harder to overturn that way, as we can see with his mask mandate being proof.
So I have a question to that, what you just said there, Brooke. So the scenario right now, Biden's making executive orders, and we're not fond of executive orders, but when our governor, DeSantis, Daddy D, signs an executive order, kind of reversing his executive order, do we say, well, we don't like that, we don't like it from a principle standpoint, but how do you not fight fire with fire? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think that's...
This is going to come back to sort of the libertarian philosophy, and I understand that that's kind of where this conversation might go, but... You know what I'm saying?
Well, I think that's exactly what I talked about last week. The question I kind of posed all you guys is, like, I feel like that's one of those things where it's like, okay, we're getting too lost in the sauce with the principles. Like, yes, we stand by our principles, obviously, but I feel like in that regard, that is not. Maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like that is not a time that we should be like, oh well, elected officials shouldn't use executive orders. It's like, okay, yeah, you're right, but how is that not a win? He's using, his power to undo.
He's undoing the wrongful doing to you. So
right.
It's like if anything, he's just reversing what shouldn't have been done in the first place.
Because in my eyes, how is it any different than him going, okay, yeah, you know what, the state of Florida is not going to recognize that federal, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Right. Like nullification.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same, in my eyes, it's the same thing, whether he, officially does it with an executive order or he just says, yeah, we're not going to recognize that executive order. I feel like it's the same difference.
Yeah, you almost wish maybe he would just be like, well, we're not going to recognize that.
Yeah, I guess if you want to.
But I guess I see what you're saying there.
Yeah, for me personally, so there's a couple ways. Obviously, one, I wish, or I don't wish, I do wish, but I don't see the federal government as something that should be a governing force for me personally, me living in Florida.
Agreed.
I don't see why that's... Yeah. So, like, again, if you want to be, like, a super, like, snobby, liberty-minded person, like, well, I don't even agree with that, so why am I even going to look for that? But if I do go past, okay, well, obviously they do, because, you live. I live in a real life.
Yeah.
I do wish that maybe this is an executive order that since we do live real life and this is the government we have, this is what it's meant to be used for. Is the governor saying, no, I'm going to use my executive power to nullify this?
Yeah, I think if there's any justified way of
It's
using,
for this reason.
It's right. It is for this,
And that's one thing that's also. I'm glad you're using the word nullify, because that's something that actually came up in. I can't remember what they called them, but they had like constitutional conventions in each of the individual states when they were trying to convince people that the Constitution was good and it was, a good system. So they were going around to all the states, especially the ones that were kind of on the fence about it, and they were kind of answering people's questions about what was meant here in the Constitution and what this meant, and no one really like reads those nowadays. Like, I didn't even know they existed until I started listening to Tom Woods, and he brought them up. And one of the things that they talked about in there was the fact that the states are sovereign and they don't. And we've talked about this before, how it was like, we used to call it these United States, and now it's the United States. The states are sovereign, and they're allowed to nullify federal laws. They're allowed to say, no, in our state, we don't want that.
yeah. It's like that's not going to work for us.
Yeah, and if the federal government has a problem with that, then they're also allowed to secede from the union altogether. So,
Which is another interesting point, right?
yeah,
It starts talking about
and those
secession.
those are both questions that they answered in those conventions before ratifying the Constitution, and they, according to what Madison and Jefferson said during those conventions, nullification and secession are both completely legitimate, aspects of the Constitution.
Secession is imminent.
Yeah. And I wish that was...
People have been talking about it a lot.
I know
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
pretty.
Seeing
cool
a lot
to
of
see.
like conservative pages talking about it, which really surprises me.
Well, because it's like we're at the point now where it's like, how are we supposed to, live, coexist with people who,
Call you a Nazi.
yeah,
Or
like
a
it's just,
killer or something.
I feel like it's so polarized. It's like, how are we supposed to coexist with these people that basically want you dead for what you believe in?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, I mean, it's like not to get on abortion talk, but it's like that's one of those subjects where I'm just like, we're never going to come to terms with this. Like,
Yeah,
states,
Right, there's no
states just
middle
need
ground.
to make their decision, and then people just decide where they want to live.
Yep.
Because that's one of those moral arguments that it's just you're never going to get through to anyone on either side. Like, it's,
Yeah.
people have their feet planted. There's no getting through to them.
Mm-hmm.
So issues like that, it makes sense that it wouldn't necessarily be a federal law that governs that type of thing.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many examples of, what you just said, these kind of moral arguments where either side is not going to convince each other, and there's no meeting in the middle to, appease both sides, right? Like, so it's like, what do you do at that point? It's, you just argue for the rest of time, or,
yeah.
or like you said, states make their decisions, and people can decide, okay, well, if I want to have abortions, I probably shouldn't move to Texas, or I shouldn't live in Texas anymore.
Yeah, like if I plan on having multiple abortions,
Yeah.
move to a place where you get
Yeah.
multiple abortions.
California.
Yeah.
Yeah, or just invest in large stock into clothes hanger companies.
Oh, jeez. Or become a better person.
Yeah, or just
There's an option.
But
yeah, or just don't kill babies. I mean,
to go back on what Chris is talking about, when they did, the constitutional papers and people went around the nullification, that's an interesting topic just because I'm not necessarily a constitutionalist. I do believe it's probably one of the better frameworks of government out there, if not the best. But unfortunately, like anything that humans touch, it gets corrupted pretty easily. And as we all probably would agree, it's not being upheld to what it should be upheld to. And that's one thing that people can rightfully criticize the Constitution about is, a lot of people put the Constitution together, and it was pretty split. Obviously, you can read the Federalist Papers, which I haven't, but read things or listened to things on them. And there's a lot of things that we probably would agree more on that a lot of people wish there was in there, but they couldn't go in there because they had to agree on the middle ground for the Constitution. And when it comes to nullification, it's one of those things where I don't think there's a lot of history of it winning out.
Yeah.
If you want to use the Civil War as like the biggest one,
Yeah, a lot of the wording and different different clauses in the Constitution just gets twisted to mean other things. Like, for example, the General Welfare Clause has basically been twisted to mean that the government can do anything.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's obviously that's not what its intention was. If you're going to write a constitution, you're not going to add a part in it that says, oh, by the way, if it's for the greater good, the government can do whatever the hell it wants.
Yeah.
Like, what's the point of the Constitution then?
Right, exactly. It's all up to interpretation, right?
Yeah.
Well, and correct me if I'm wrong. I think that was supposed to be the, I guess the point or the benefit of having this document is there was supposed to be no room for interpretation.
Right. Well,
obviously, it was written 100 and something years ago, so
Sure.
it's going to be 200 something years ago. So obviously, over time,
Right.
we have to decipher the language and how it was used, but that's supposed to be the point of the judicial branch, the Supreme Court. If it gets to the Supreme Court, they compare it with the Constitution and all the framing documents, and that's how they're supposed to make their decision. But it's all biased now, because if you're a Democrat, you're going to interpret it one way, and if you're a Republican, you're going to interpret the other. So it's like, what is the point of all of it? It's like, it's just, at the end of the day, it's just a piece of paper,
Right.
Yeah, and I think possibly one of the beautiful things they tried to do with it is, again, like you said, these United States, the states were supposed to be sovereign.
That's it.
Where they were supposed to say, hey, Omaha can do whatever they want, but Florida, we see it as this way, so we're going to do it this way.
Right.
But now we have Big Daddy Federal, which more times than not tells us
jamming its cock down our throat,
which is not how it's supposed to be. And that's, for me personally, that's probably the biggest issue that's happened over the past 200 years.
And even further than the states, the people were sovereign, because the way it was framed, the federal government's power came from the states, and the states were sovereign, and the states' power came from the people, because the people were sovereign. So it really was kind of like an individualist type of framework, but it's not so much that way anymore.
We're just the peons, and we have to do what we're told.
Yeah, but I mean, it's nice to see videos. I know we were talking before the podcast, like in Australia, though, when you see people rush the line, and it's like maybe 20 police officers holding off 200 civilians. Like, that's where the sovereignty comes from, is that we have more numbers than them.
Yeah, I just read an article too where I'd have to look up what company it is, but they did their vaccine mandate, and they lost like 40% of their employment, so they reversed it, and 40% of their employment came back.
Jeez.
And it's like, there's something to be, we harp on this all the time. There's something to be said in unity and strength in numbers, and I mean, you're seeing a lot of examples of it over the last year.
Yeah, I think that's such a. I mean, we've made this point multiple times, but it's such a valuable point for like our listeners and everybody else to know, is that like there is, like, you do have power.
Yeah,
like you do, and it's not just like what they say goes. It's like you have power, to disobey the nonsense, and not comply, especially in numbers,
Yeah, so many people write me on my personal page, and they're like, "Whoa, what are we supposed to do?" And I'm like, it's not about what you're supposed to do. It's like, just fucking build communities and
like live your everyday
organize
life.
Like,
live your everyday life as if the federal government didn't exist. Obviously, don't get fucking arrested for some stupid shit. But
be smart about it. Build your illegal machine guns and don't tell anybody.
But just ignore them. Like really, there's federal employees make up like less than 0.5% of the population.
Yeah.
So really, when it comes down to it, if you all just mass disobedience, don't listen to them, there's really nothing they can do about it. They'll probably make an example out of a couple people, but those jails, I don't think they can resist a mob of 100,000 people. So
no. And then if those couple people that do unfortunately get the boot, you make a GoFundMe and you help them out.
Right, there you go. GoFundMe. Yeah. That's what it's for. And then they'll cancel your GoFundMe.
Yeah.
Oh, you seen that guy who made a GoFundMe for to help with expenses? His son died from the vaccine, and GoFundMe like canceled it.
Oh yeah, his son died. He had
I didn't hear about that.
Myocarditis.
Fucking insane.
He had like
enlarged
inflammation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, his heart was like twice the size It was supposed to be.
So he was
that
the Grinch.
died. Yeah.
At the end of the
He's
story.
the Grinch at the end, yeah.
Yeah, isn't that funny how they, in the Grinch they talk about, how his heart grew 10 size or whatever the
Yeah.
quote is from the movie. It's like
sure
that's an
Alexis would know.
extreme health concern. Like that's not good.
Yeah, he should be dead.
Yeah.
Soon to be a video of doctors react to the Grinch.
And next thing you know, motherfucker was dead.
Merry Christmas.
He actually died right after that feast at the end.
Yeah. He died happy, though.
Oh man.
That's all
I don't
that
know.
matters.
I mean, just fuck executive orders, man. It's just again, what's great about this podcast for me is I get to look into more things that every now and then I might have like an opinion on, but I'm not too sure about.
Mm-hmm.
But now I get to look into this and be like, dude, this is just total shit, man.
Yeah.
To know that it's just okay that this happens, and it's because of a loose wiggle room that's happened over the past 200 years, that now Biden can say, everybody has to be vaccinated if they have a company that has over 100 employees.
Yeah, it's. I could have never imagined that the president would have that power.
And even if you want to say like the Trump, like you said, the bump stocks, like how the fuck does that even happen?
Yeah.
I don't
Well,
want.
that was directly after the Vegas shooting, so obviously, and dude,
Those
that
crises, man.
that shooting,
Exactly.
they're
Uh-oh.
but
About to go in a 2 hour.
I've been saying this, dude. I've been saying we need to do like a conspiracy episode where we just kind of but anyway, I digress. But how on earth, the largest mass shooting in history, and we never heard anything about it again. Anyway, the guy had a bunch of guns with bump stocks, and that was what everyone rallied behind for this bump stock, ban executive order.
Yeah, and this 60-something-year-old drunk asshole managed to keep a constant rate of fire with a bump stock for how long?
Yeah.
Yeah, it just seems a little.
And there's so many guys that will spend time in Afghanistan, and they were like, that was not an AR-15. That was an M240 Bravo. No doubt in my mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
I still think that guy was a patsy for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. To put my tinfoil hat on. But,
Yeah, it is.
Oh yeah.
Makes
um,
sense.
Not to mention too, some of the agencies, government agencies, were also bought by executive orders, like FEMA and the Peace Corps and stuff like that. So that's an enormous amount of power to start a whole another agency based on
Yeah.
an executive order.
Good,
It's
good point.
Yeah.
And they're since they're being created by executive orders, they're kind of beholden to the executive branch, even if it's not legally they're taking orders from the executive branch. They were created by the executive branch, so they naturally have kind of an affinity towards them, right?
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point to bring up, Cameron, because it's again one of those things where even if you're a small government person, which again there's nothing wrong with that, but me being more of a liberty-minded person, it's one of those things where I don't want that to happen. I don't want any president just to wake up one morning and be like, "Fuck, man, I don't know. Maybe there should be an agency that does, looks at fucking Oreos and see how many Oreos get shipped out from Omaha."
Yeah.
And that can happen.
Yeah.
And then obviously you can say, well, Congress wouldn't fund that, but fuck, I don't know. Maybe they would.
The only thing I know about Omaha is steaks, and you keep bringing it
Yeah,
up.
I don't know why.
Yeah, do they make Oreos? I'm pretty sure
I'm hungry.
Nabisco has a factory in Jersey.
Probably.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm sure they have factories all over, but that's the one of the ones that I
Omaha
know.
comes to my mind immediately for whatever reason.
You remember that, Cam, going into Jersey?
Yeah.
Every year we drive past a Nabisco place. It always smells like cookies.
And then there's the M&M place too, right?
That's in New York.
Oh.
I think you're thinking
And then
of-
once you get
in
past-
Times Square, you're thinking of the...
No. Well, yeah, maybe. Yeah, maybe it's that. Maybe you're right.
Yeah.
And then once you get past the Nabisco place in New Jersey, you just the nice stench of the shit just hits your nose.
Oh, yeah.
Beautiful
When's the
God
last
in
time
state.
you went? It's been a while, right?
Yeah, it's good. It's a good thing. It's been a
No,
while.
I agree with you. I'm just...
been
a
yeah,
while.
I don't love that place. I want to go visit our aunt and stuff in LBI, but other than that,
Oh, yeah, their house is pretty sweet out there.
other
man.
than that, I don't really have much of a desire to go to that place.
Yeah. Well, hey, whenever you want to go, let me know. We'll plan something.
Okay, yeah. Or
Um,
we can just go to the Keys.
or we could do that.
Yeah.
I was going to bring up because you mentioned, the Constitution and how it hasn't really fulfilled its goals at this point. It's kind of strayed from the intended purpose, it seems. According to some people, I'm sure they would disagree, but I definitely agree with that. But I was going to bring up this quote from Lysander Spooner, who I've brought up before.
Mr. Spooner.
Yeah, my favorite anarchist. He said, But whether the Constitution really be one thing or another, this much is certain, that it has either authorized such a government as we have had, or has been powerless to prevent it. In either case, it is unfit to exist.
So I agree with that. Like, minus the fact that, like, you have, like, countries like Australia and Canada where, like, things are just absolutely, like, running rampant with their
Right.
government. So, like, I mean, I agree with that to a level, but at least we can point to something and say, hey, you can't do that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, but it just seems like it's a slow march towards it being irrelevant.
I totally agree with that point. But it's like, for now, at least there's some boundary between I'm going to do whatever I want to you versus, you know.
You know what my boundary is? My guns.
Well, there's that too.
I don't
You
I
know?
don't know if this makes sense, but my semi-drunk
No, it
mind is
doesn't.
making it. The Constitution is the limestone, and the government is the water, slowly
Eroding.
eroding it.
Yes.
Wow.
That was poetic.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Wow.
So fuck you,
Or
government.
the Constitution is the tree, and the government is the guy shaking it for 200 years.
It's just-
Or the termites.
He's just fucking shaking it.
that probably makes more sense.
Yeah, over time,
I
it's
thought-
eventually going to give way.
I thought you were going to bring up that Thomas Jefferson quote.
Oh,
It was like
the
the tree of liberty
liberty.
must be refreshed from time to time with the blood of patriots
Yeah.
and tyrants.
Yeah.
Which probably is true, because it hasn't happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think those guys, I mean, granted, like, 90% of them were federal agents. They were onto something trying to fucking kidnap, what was it, Whitmer?
Yeah.
They were onto
Those
something.
FBI guys.
Yeah.
Oh, did you guys see those FBI guys at the rally?
Oh, yeah.
Have you seen the memes?
I love
It
those.
was like
memes.
So funny.
so there was a rally in DC, and it was like a what was it?
I don't even know what
Not-
the rally was. The guy looked like he was like part of Antifa.
It was
like he
it
had
was some
the black
conservative
on.
rally.
They had
It
like
was
a what, "Don't Tread on Me" flag. I
yeah.
think.
It
So
was
who
like
knows?
it was a rally like opposing the January 6th commission stuff, basically. And so it was like the same type of people from January 6th. But I mean, honestly, as soon as this like plan came out, everyone, like all the meme pages I follow online were like, "Oh yeah, the feds just planned another rally." Like,
Yeah.
like just like basically insinuating that nobody actually fucking planned this rally other than like federal agents that are trying to trap people.
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
But,
that was something Alex Jones basically exposed. What was his big thing where he talked about the, like...
Oh, that was during the
It was in California,
Occupy
right?
Wall Street.
Yes,
Thanks.
yeah.
You're talking about how they have like people like federal
Peacefully
agents
protesting, and then the agents went in and basically
start-
gave the police a reason to break up these protests and get the people out of
yeah,
there.
they start breaking windows and stuff. And
Yeah.
yeah, that's a
And people called him
fact.
crazy.
That's a fact that actually,
And it came
is
out
proven.
that that's what, yeah.
Can't believe this. Well, no, I'm not gonna say anything actually.
Well, I want to know now.
I was
No,
gonna say
I know exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
Just don't say it.
I'm not gonna say it. But yeah, no, that's a proven fact. But the picture that came out is hilarious. It's like just like this group of 5 dudes. They're all like clean shaven with like military haircuts, just standing there at the rally, and like they
Wearing
got, like,
shades.
and they're wearing
Yeah.
these tight shorts that you can like see their fucking firearm through.
Yeah. Like, tell me you're a Fed without telling me you're a Fed.
It's almost like a Greek life came to this rally.
But it's all, the
Yeah.
FBI.
Oh yeah.
That's their Greek acronym.
Jeez.
Phi Beta, whatever I is.
Iota.
Iota. Yeah. Damn, dude.
Shit.
I don't know. Anybody else got anything else on executive orders? I mean, it's just
They can suck my nuts.
right.
Literally, the entire federal government can eat my entire ass.
That's a lot of ass eating.
Yeah, I know. I'm excited.
Both because of the size of your ass and the size of the government.
Yeah. Got a wagon, son.
Yep, it's a big boy.
But
That's more than you bargained for.
I think it's interesting. I don't know where this would go, but locally, again with the governor of DeSantis, and we brought up with this episode of why we a lot of times are against his executive orders,
Can I get a landing?
mainly because if you can point to the mask mandate, it's obviously not working. Which I guess depending on how you want to look at it is a good and bad thing. If you're for the executive order of / not wanting your kids to be masked in schools, it's bad because I think it was 30 or was it 40% of school boards are not listening to it.
Yeah.
So it's like, this is why we don't agree with it, because it's so easily muddled, especially on the state level. And then on the federal level, we don't agree on it because it has such an over looming effect, and it holds,
Yeah, and that's why.
Sorry, Nick
the
was
way-
making hand movements. I didn't know what was going on.
That's why the way I see it, things should ideally be decided like basically anything that's not in the Constitution expressly
Deliberately.
expressly what is it
Deliberately expressed?
called? Yeah, expressly. What's the wording in the Constitution? I can't remember.
Oh.
Expressly delegated to the federal government, which is what it says in the Constitution. Like things like masks and shit like that. That should be decided on as local a authority as possible, like down to your local school board, for example. And then that way, if people in Indian River County want to do masks, then people can move north or south, like very easily. It's not that far. I mean, I know for some people that's not possible, but like it's a lot easier than moving to a different state.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's a good point, Chris. Super good point.
I mean, even on a county level, it's too big for that kind of stuff. I think it should be like individual high schools have their own
Board.
Yeah.
A couple teachers sit on.
Well,
board.
in a free market economy, right? I mean,
Right.
you'd have a bunch of private schools that can operate however the fuck they want.
Right, so you can
And
just
you can-
switch schools. You don't even have to move.
Exactly.
The
You can
dream.
run freely.
the dream.
Yeah. Well, and not like in Indian River County, how many schools are there? There's Vero Beach High. Like, we'll just limit it to high schools. There's Vero and Sebastian.
That's two. Yeah.
And charter.
Well, that's not a
Oh.
county school.
Yeah, I'm talking about like county funded.
Okay,
Yeah.
alright.
So, you have two choices to pick from that abide by the same rules.
Yeah.
And so if you don't agree with those, you're shit out of luck.
Yeah, I would say that like that's the way you get to liberty, is have the most amount of opportunities and decentralization. Exactly. And it seems like now we just have the federal government just telling us what to do. Fortunately,
Yeah, not ideal.
no.
Yeah, man, I gotta tell you, we've been listening to a lot of school board meetings as of late, and
Oh my god!
And-
when I found out how much those people make, I was a little upset.
Tell us how much they make, dude.
They all make six figures.
Dude, and to watch that fucking live stream and like knowing that's how much we pay these people,
Yeah,
Oh
the
my
superintendent
God, my
makes
blood was
almost
boiling,
170,000.
just to sit there on his fat ass and say like
Talk
a
out of
bunch
his ass.
a bunch of words and not say anything. Like,
Yeah. And
I've
if-
never seen somebody speak so much and not say anything.
And if you're listening to this episode, you've already listened to our last
Yeah, we
episode.
talked about this last episode.
Yeah.
right?
But
And if you haven't listened to that episode,
Go listen to it.
go listen to it.
yeah,
Good.
but yeah, it's just crazy. I mean, I don't know. It's woo. I really say it's just. I would think, and I don't know if we want to talk about it too much, but getting more into the Mises Caucus of Florida. I know some of you have, and some of us will be soon. I feel like the mask mandate is a very interesting topic to get on. Because like we've discussed maybe a couple times now, is if you look at it from a more conservative side, well, yeah, you're happy it happened, but look how the school boards aren't even listening to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you're listening from the other side, which is more of a liberal side, you're like, well, why would you even want the governor to have this much power to dictate what you're doing, in fucking Miami? So
Yeah.
I don't know. It's interesting because of these small things that happen. Well, that's not even small. These big things that happen that may seem small because we're looking at most things federally, but even locally, these topics we can hopefully talk to people about
Yeah.
that can hopefully bring them more to the center, if not more liberty-minded.
Yeah, Dave Smith brought this up in his podcast, but about like liberals maybe like starting to see the interesting idea called secession. You know what I'm saying? Like if they start to like,
Their utopia.
yeah, like they could just do whatever they want. They
Yeah.
could just be California and close down every restaurant and just like stay in their house all day.
Yeah.
Why we do what we
Healthcare
want.
could be free.
Exactly, they got exactly what they want. You
You
know,
could
and
pay
then
$10 a gallon for gas. It'd be
Right.
great.
right,
Yeah.
I
you
was
guys have
talking
fun.
to Uncle Craig this morning, and he said that the after Newsom's recall,
Yeah.
the Texas market like fucking skyrocketed. So
Oh,
he
yeah.
got in there like the
Yeah,
perfect
he
time.
knew he did that on
Yeah,
purpose.
yeah.
So Uncle bought a house in Texas from California.
Uncle Craig. They know Uncle Craig.
Yeah, Uncle Craig. Yeah, you guys
Yeah,
know.
we'll have
kids.
him on soon again.
Yeah, but he bought a house in Texas like he said he was going to, but he did it right before Newsom got reelected. Well,
Recall
the
recall attempt.
Yeah, the recall attempt or whatever. So and that's just to say that all those people in California saw that this guy, you know, is still going to be their governor and was
It's like,
like,
fuck this shit.
I'm out. I'm out.
Out.
So, yeah, at least people, I don't know, are moving around. I guess that's a good thing. I don't know.
I saw a Babylon Bee article. It was like the homeless of San Francisco celebrate the failed recall by writing "Congratulations, Newsom" in their own feces on the sidewalk.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw
Oh
that.
man.
Man,
But-
that fucking state is so fucked. So beyond fucked.
Yeah, but that was one of the things that Newsom was doing is he was like housing these people and like feeding them like up until the weeks of the election.
Yeah.
So that they would vote for him. So I mean, you know.
But
Smart move.
Uncle Craig was telling us they had like polling, locations in like a lot of the like hotels that he was putting these homeless people in.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
So it's like, why the fuck are polling locations in hotels that
Yeah.
like it's just so, and they do it in broad daylight. They don't even have to hide anymore. It's because like everyone sees it, but it's like, what the fuck? Like, what are you gonna do?
Kind of makes me
Kidnap him.
wonder.
That's what you're
if,
gonna do.
If it was a because in the original Constitution you had to be a property owner to vote. So kind of makes me wonder if there was a point to that,
Yeah.
because all these people who have nothing to lose, no stakes in the economy or anything like that, get to dictate who the leader is because he's going to give them more free stuff or he's going to take care of them.
Voting
Yeah.
is the dumbest thing that I think we as a people have ever come up with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know not everyone here will probably agree with that, but
And I can already hear someone say, "Yeah, but women couldn't vote either." Shut up.
good. Repeal the 19th. That's what I'm waiting for, a fucking governor or president to get up there and be like, I'm signing this executive order that repeals the 19th Amendment.
I think Abbott might do it, dude. Old Wheels over there. Fucking just.
I had no idea until you told us that like 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
He
That
looks,
Abbott's
Hot Wheels.
wheelchair
he's a
bound.
tall guy from the waist up.
Fucking. Oh my god, I had no idea. I'm like, what are you talking about?
Oh,
He's in a
man.
wheelchair.
But to bring up back to the session point, I think that I didn't listen to it, but I heard a clip of the Dave's podcast, and he was talking about Silverman, Sarah Silverman. She brought it up,
Yeah.
and that's where he was kind of like, "Well, this is super interesting because
She's such an idiot.
yeah, one, she's an idiot, and two, she exemplifies a lot of the elite liberal
Yeah.
state of mind, right?" So he's like, "This is interesting that maybe now more of them are thinking of secession, as a lot of us are, and especially New Hampshire, since they've tried to file something for seceding. That probably won't pass, unfortunately. But
Well, what don't you have to get like, I don't know, like 2/3 of the states to sign off on it or something?
I would assume it's a super majority.
But it, like, my thinking is like, okay, if you're going to secede, it means you don't recognize any of the United States. Like, not that you don't recognize them, but you're seceding from that union. So why the fuck do you need anybody to agree with you?
Yeah, I don't think it needs to be voted on by other states.
no, yeah, I think
No?
it's just within
I think
the state.
to bring
Two-thirds.
to bring a state in, the other states have to vote.
That's what it is.
But
Yeah,
yeah,
if you want to absorb
You
another
secede-
state. That's
I mean,
right.
you need to do it legally within your own state and vote on it that way. But you don't need anyone else to agree on it.
Yeah, and I don't. If you guys, I'm sure you guys remember, but when Trump first got elected, California tries to secede.
They talked about it anyways.
God,
No, I think it
yeah,
almost.
they're all talk. They
No,
were
I-
going to move to Canada too.
Well, that happened, but
Yeah.
Canada didn't see anybody moving up there. But I think they almost tried. I think it might have gotten a ballot. I could be wrong about that.
I think you're right. There was going to be 2 different Californias.
North and South California, right?
something like that. Yeah,
North is usually typically a little more conservative,
yeah. Free California and
Which is-
Utopia, California,
like free-ish.
otherwise
California.
known as Dystopia,
'Cause it's
California.
Still California.
Yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, secession right now looks like the best bet.
But what the problem was all the wineries would be in free California, so they weren't about that.
Oh yeah. hmm Wait. I thought Free California was Southern California. Are most of the wineries in the northern part?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think northern
North.
part's more.
The northern part's like all red.
Oh, you're saying the northern part was going to be free California?
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh,
So all the
okay.
politicians that
That's
wanna go up
ironic.
there.
Yeah, that's ironic that they wanted to call it free California, where that's like the most.
I just made that up.
Oh,
Just like everything else I say on this podcast.
source? None, bro. Made it up.
Literally just made it up.
Yeah. No, and before we move on to next, just bullshitting our topic, I do want to mention another thing with executive orders, which we lightly mentioned in the beginning, is there's a ton. I say ton. There's a couple, and there's probably more than a couple, like a ton, examples of just terrible executive orders that have been passed and that haven't been passed. One of them that we mentioned was obviously the internment camps for the Japanese during World War II, which did go through the courts and was passed. So that should be fucking scary. That during that time, the courts were like, no, this is perfectly constitutional. You can totally throw people in cages for no reason other than their ethnicity.
Yeah.
And then, of course, in the 80s, they came back and said, oh, we're fucking sorry.
We're so sorry.
We're so sorry we ruined your lives. But one that did get overturned was, I think, Truman in 1952 tried to take over all the steel mills in America.
Nice.
I don't remember what the reason was.
That's gangster, bro.
I think the 52 was what, the start of the Cold War? Possibly.
Yeah, yeah.
So I don't know if that had anything to do with it, but he was just like, hey, I think the steel mills need to be under federal.
That's interesting that they wouldn't have done that like during the war. Well,
Yeah.
I guess it essentially was that way during the
I'm
war.
sure they made
Yeah.
I'm sure they made a proclamation almost like Trump did when companies had to make fucking masks for no reason.
Yeah, like they had to make what the government told them to make.
Yeah.
Which is, fascism is what that's called.
But yeah, I just want to throw out another,
Yeah.
a big one where, the federal government's saying, hey, your company is now mine. Obviously, it didn't go through once it got, the courts, but still.
Reminds me of a short book called Atlas Shrugged.
Ooh. Book I've only read 100 pages in.
I read half of it. I had to put it away because I was too distracted
It's a big book, man.
from what I'm supposed to be
Reading?
doing.
No, thanks, bro. I rather deem what is true and false based on my own experience. All right, guys. Well, sorry for the short episode this week. We are actually recording this early, and Cameron will be out of town, so we're doing it early. So, thanks for listening.